Might be, yeah.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Good, Rose.
I
Thanks.
appreciate you doing this second video for me. You know, it had been a year before we did the last one you just did, and so now we're doing a little follow up to that. And Brian has Alzheimer's, and he's been doing these videos for us for a couple of years,
Yeah.
walking through his journey. So, Brian, how's it going?
Good, Rose.
Where are you at now?
Well, I have reached a point, I would say, in the last 2 to 3 months, where my Alzheimer's symptoms have really become somewhat disabling and disruptive of normal day-to-day activities. I've came up with different little mantras for myself over the course of this journey. I'm gonna do this with as much class as I possibly can, and I'm gonna do it for as best I can for as long as I can. And I'm really at a point now where you don't have a choice; you have to go forward. But I have had to resolve in the last 3 months the fact that the disease is really starting to get me.
Grab you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when Linda and I arrived here in Florida after Thanksgiving, we had a disastrous problem in our home with mold. And it took 2.5 months of 6 days a week by contractors to put the house back together. Extraordinarily disruptive, very stressful. And I came to realize that, number one, stress, well, first of all, being outside of your normal surroundings, you can't handle it. It is a very stressful situation, but you can't handle it, makes it even more stressful, And we had contractors doing this and sitting down with our construction coordinator and having meetings about what we were going to be doing, decisions, who's here tomorrow, and then who comes after, and then after this one is here, this one's got to come right away back.
The anticipation of the logistics.
Yeah. And I realized, and it was very difficult to realize, that I can't do that anymore. I just don't have the mental ability to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Linda, of course, knew it. She saw it. But I had to surrender it.
Relinquish.
Which was tough, and once you do that, once you come to that realization, then you really have the ability to look at it, because it's out there. It's finally, not hiding in the corner anymore. Mm-hmm. And you become more and more aware of the fact that those are things that you can't do, you can't remember, and they become disabling. And it is the strangest thing, because in the moment you are perfect. I could speak to the construction coordinator, and I worked in construction when I was very young. I've always been very handy. We GC'd the construction of our home back in New York, and so I had all of those abilities. So I could talk to him about decisions that he wanted to share and get our input on and everything like that. I was perfect with that, really perfect with that.
Once you said, I can't control the whole big picture.
Well, no, my point there is that there's a part of my brain that still had the ability to coordinate things conceptually, but keeping track of them, which involves memory,
You couldn't.
it isn't there. And I think I just said that, but I really think that that's the distinction.
Hmm.
The part of your brain that rationalizes and holds a conversation is not the part of your brain that lets you remember the conversation tomorrow, or who is coming today. I had this conversation, and the carpenter is coming, and the painter is coming, the electrician is coming, and this one is in the morning, this one the other. And I'd wake up and say, Linda, who's coming today?
I have no clue. Yeah.
Yeah, don't have any idea. So that was pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, really, 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 really huge. And but at the same time, once I had resolved that in my own mind, and I was able to pass it over to Linda, it was very, very good for me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because okay, that's a stressor that I don't have to deal with anymore. But it was a problem because what happened was Linda started doing these things, and I resented it.
Mm.
You know? And again, I didn't talk about it. You know,
Just internalized.
I just internalized it, and it caused some problems.
Hmm.
You know, which stresses her,
Stresses you.
hurtful to her,
Mm-hmm.
and that then becomes stressing to me. You know, so it's really kind of like it's almost cyclical, and it's a no-win type of a situation. Yeah, and but I still am saddened by the fact that I don't have that, because I see my world shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I realize that the time will come when I'm not going to be good in the moment. And that's really, really sad and frightening.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have not yet, you know, I very often say that I have indicators beforehand
Mm-hmm.
that something is about to happen, some plateau is about to be reached. I don't have that sense yet about really becoming closed in the present, you know. But I have had to confront the reality that that's very likely the next stage that's going to be coming, you know.
But you don't know until you know.
Right, exactly. And you hope that, you know, like we were planning on going on a cruise for our 50th wedding anniversary to the Mediterranean. And it was going to be a delightful cruise because two other couples that we've known for 55 years, college friends, one of whom is really my best friend in the world, other than, you know, my family and my wife. But you know, we've been good pals, and the couples have been, you know, they won't use their name, but we've been close, even though we're far apart. And but anyway, the trip fell apart for a number of reasons, and we've had to rebook it for next year. And you know, I have concerns about where I'm going to be a year from
Next
now.
year.
I really do have concerns about that. We were recently on a cruise, and again, new circumstances are very difficult to handle, particularly big things. You know, I mean, really, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah. Less is more.
Where I have to be. You know, it's not a question of. It's really where I have to be, because if things are happening fast, or a lot of things are happening at one time, I don't do well with it anymore.
You're overwhelmed.
I really don't do well with it anymore.
Are you very consistent in your daily routine?
Pretty much. You know, I mean, life is simple. We're retired, but I can adapt reasonably well to doing different things. But I'm living in a world now where there is not much stress. You know, I do a lot of reading. I still enjoy physical work. I'm really looking forward to going home and getting back into my trees, you know, because as I've said, I think in the past, and as I've said to Linda, you know, in the woods, I don't have Alzheimer's.
Right. You said that before.
I know exactly where I am, and you know, But this business of not being able to handle things for anybody is difficult. But for me, who dealt in other people's lives and other people's problems, to not be able to manage my own now is really, really very
Heartbreaking.
impactful. Yeah. And I think that you know, you've known for a long time that this is a no-win situation, but you realize that you're getting closer and closer to that point where your world isn't, you're not going to be here anymore to a large extent, and it's something that you have to resolve. And once you reach that plateau, it is very good and very positive. But this whole journey has been anticipating where it's going to go and what's going to happen next. And the distance to be traveled now is getting shorter and shorter, and you realize it,
I know yesterday we were in group, and it was a very emotional group.
Yes.
And, we talked about, when you first came in this morning, about some of the things that happened in group yesterday, and how you and Linda had elaborated on it a couple of times. Some of the things we talked about, I know, instills fear in you and in her. How do you feel about that journey that we saw yesterday with some people?
Well, we've been coming to group with you now for years, and it was a very large group, and there were, because we haven't been here for a year, there were a lot of people who were new to us, and group is wonderful because you get people thinking, and as I've said in the past, it's very therapeutic. But sitting there and listening to these people who were suffering as caregivers and living very, very difficult lives was really, really tough. Really, really tough. And but it was good, because Linda and I have, since yesterday morning, we've probably sat down and talked about that meeting twice now, at least. And the thing that it brought out in me is, and I'm not being critical of anybody, but everybody has to find their own level. But I feel very strongly that I do not want my Alzheimer's to ruin Linda's life.
Right.
And ruin the children's family lives, but principally Linda, because she's the one that I'm going to be living with. And it just demonstrated to me two things. A lot of the people yesterday, their loved one was in assisted living or a nursing home situation.
Right.
And I have always said to Linda that I do not want her to be consumed with my disease and my condition. I don't expect her, and I don't want her to come and see me every single day. And I have said to her, and this, some people are going to think that this sounds cold, but I genuinely mean it. When I am no longer communicative, and if I become very difficult physically or struggling or something like that, don't come to see me. I mean, your obligation at that point, it seems to me, is to make sure that I'm getting good care and good quality care, and that the nurses are doing their job and dietitians are doing their job. And whatever state of mind I'm in, please God, I'm going to be very calm and very compliant. But whatever state I'm in, you can't help me. No one can help me. Just make me comfortable. But I don't want to burden your life.
But you say to make me comfortable, and that was a big bone of contention yesterday in the meeting, as well as many meetings I've been to, where people say, well, I just don't want them medicating them. And I can't wrap my head around that, because if I am uncomfortable, if I'm combative, if I'm just agitated, why would you not want me to be in a medicated state that I'm calm and not causing a whole lot of anxiety and angst for everybody around me?
I think that the way it happens, and I've got to be very careful here because my mother had Alzheimer's, and she had a difficult journey. And my sister is going to be a saint for what she did, you know. But I think that there are good-souled people who just don't want bad things to happen to someone that they love.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't accept it. Now, Mary had my mother living in her home with her. I can't think of anything more difficult than that.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's daily behavior had become, just about impossible. And I would come and visit her maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and I would be like exhausted after 2 hours. And Mame had that 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And I want Linda to know, and I want my children to know, that if I'm agitated, I want to be medicated so that I'm not agitated.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not aware of what I'm doing. I'm not in any real stress. And if I am in real stress, then treat the stress and make it go away.
Right.
And if that means what I call give medication that are zombie medications, I think that's probably what I need. And sitting here now today, that's what I want. That's how I want my care to be managed. And that's what I want. So there's no responsibility placed upon you. There's no sin on you. There's no bad on
Right.
you. That's the way it should be, because number one, I don't want her to live in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, I don't want to be in that condition. I really don't want to be in that condition. It's dehumanizing. It's
is.
a lack of respect for human nature.
And nobody wants the love of your life to see you on a daily basis in that situation.
Mm.
You can come and check in, like the lady yesterday who goes there for 8 hours twice. Too much. Don't torture yourself like that because it's exhausting. And your loved one doesn't really want that for you.
And are you doing anything
Right.
for that person? I don't think she is.
It's hard to say.
If you're
Mhm.
watching this, please, I'm so
No judgment.
certainly not
Mhm.
going to use your name or anything like that. But that's the way I see the reality that I know I'm going to be in,
Mhm.
because I've seen it, and that's what I want.
But as
Put it
I've
down.
seen with people in group before, there are people who will have behaviors, and then they'll get, the right medication, and the behaviors go away. There's a progression for this disease, and the progression is different for every single person. There is only one Alzheimer's patient, and it's the one you're dealing with,
Mhm.
and no two are alike. And that's what people have to see.
Yeah.
You are unique because you can feel a symptom coming on, and you know you're going to have a change. You're so tuned in and aware. Other people aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation and communication that you and Linda have together is absolutely inspiring. And I hope that other people will take stock in this and say, let's talk about this. And I know you're hurt, and I know you're sick, and I know you have a disease. But if someone had cancer, you'd be talking about it. It's a disease. Talk about it. Share with your loved one. Reality is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brian,
True.
you're the best. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for spending your day with me. And Linda, you're a saint. There's nobody
They
better
all
than
are.
you guys. Every
They all
caregiver
are.
is a saint.
And I think I'm a little bit regretful. I think I may have crossed a line that I should not have in relating some of the things that were discussed in group yesterday.
I don't think so, Brian.
But I certainly meant no offense, and I really am. I'm more concerned about caregivers than I am for the patients, honestly, because the patients, that's the way it is. You know, you don't have control over it, but the caregivers do.
They do.
And
And they have to give themselves permission.
They do, absolutely. And you know, your loved one would not ask you to do that. And if the person was of that nature, you don't get guilt because you have the right to
live.
not let that disease destroy you. You know.
And that's what people lose sight of.
Yeah.
It's okay to live.
Yeah.
Even though your loved one has a disease.
Yep.
Give yourself permission.
Yep.
Brian, thank you.
Yep.
I know you're going north pretty soon.
Yeah.
We'll miss you, and then the whole year goes by and we see you again. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.